Let's see.
So it looks like we have a quorum here. So let's get started. I'll read the preliminary announcement. On March 29th, 2023, Governor Healy signed into law a supplemental budget bill, which, among other things, further extends temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2025. Any or all members of a public body may continue participating in meetings remotely. The open meeting law's requirement that a quorum of the body and the chair be physically present at the meeting location remains suspended. This meeting is being recorded. All votes must be taken with a roll call vote. We'll begin the open session by having each remote member introduce themselves, starting with Andrew Foster.
Andrew Foster, town accountant, participating remotely.
Brent.
Brent Nelson, participating remotely.
Christine.
Christine Treweller, participating remotely.
Megan.
Megan Sullivan, participating remotely.
Rob.
Rob Egler, participating remotely.
And Mike Marcucci, also participating remotely. So good morning, everyone. Sorry that we started a couple of minutes late. First item up on the agenda is the review and approval of our meeting minutes from our August 21st meeting. Does anyone have any comments, corrections, issues on the draft minutes? Frank?
There was one item where it says, Christine Treweller mentioned that the select board had approved the net zero vehicle policy. Yes?
We have not. I'm sorry. We have not.
So should we say that the select board will?
They were considering it. Yeah.
Yeah, are considering.
Should say consider.
So that's in the second bullet. And then at the end, it's irrelevant really, but Christine, then the third box up from the very bottom. But Christine suggested 1 3-hour long meeting, and I don't want to lay that at your feet, Christine, because that was me. So M. Sullivan. Other than that, they looked good to me.
Any other comments?
I don't think I've ever suggested a 3-hour meeting for anything.
Any other comments or corrections? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Second.
There's a second. All right. Andrew?
Yes.
Brent?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. All right. We're off to a good start. All right. Next item is to review the updated 5-year capital improvement plan. Frank, you sent that out. Do you want to kick that off for us?
Sure, yeah. So I apologize for the multiple emails and multiple versions, but we did send out a version that basically indicates the items that are new to the plan for fiscal 26 through fiscal 30. Most of them were items that are not funded by the Capital Stabilization Fund. The Parks and Recreation Vehicle, the Parks and Recreation Strategic Planning and Consultant project. There are a couple of ALS funded items, new stretchers, and a power load system for the for ambulance, which, in speaking with the chief, the condition of and I'm sure he can discuss this more when it comes time to meet, but the ambulance is due for replacement. That's been on the plan for a number of years, but given the condition of the system and the stretcher, it does make they're also in poor condition, but kind of makes sense to time those all together. But again, I'm sure he can discuss that more in a couple of weeks. And then the only other changes, there were some small adjustments in the prices on the DPW items that Mo will be discussing today. One price went slightly up, one price went slightly down. I can just double check with Mo on those amounts because I closed out of that window, unfortunately, of the prior version. But no material changes, just wanted to indicate which ones were new to the plan as we discussed at the last meeting.
Okay. And I would presumably when these departments come in, we can talk about each of them, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and they can explain, why this came up, why this wasn't on the 5-year plan initially.
All right, that's okay with me. Any questions on any of this from the committee? All right, so the next is our meeting with departments. We're meeting today on DPW and information technology, and is in the agenda. DPW is up first. Is that going to hold, or is Mo here?
Mo is here. I will promote him now.
All right.
Owen has joined as well, but I didn't want to
Okay.
overload everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mo. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you.
Where would you like to start?
At the beginning, I guess, huh?
Okay.
So as far as, I guess we start with highway. The only ones from highway, we're looking at a new backhoe loader and a 6-wheeled dump truck, which will be a Ford F-350. So the backhoe loader is a 20-year-old vehicle. It is it's pertinent to our snow and ice operation. It also we use it a lot for different projects, but the price went to $175,000. I think the original price was $180,000. But that price would probably be true once this if it gets approved for next fiscal year in July, because the prices seem to skyrocket over the course of the year, depending on availability. And but we're hoping that it doesn't change too much from the 175. The 6-wheel dump truck is it's an F-350. Most likely going to be a gas engine, not a diesel engine. As you're probably well aware that the diesel engines are now being phased out. There are a lot of trucking companies that are not ready for this. It came on very quickly, and they're putting in requests to extend to have these diesel engines still be viable for the next few years until things catch up. But most likely it's going to be a gas engine, which may affect the price a little bit lower, not higher, hopefully.
Maurice, can I just ask?
Sure.
I have no idea. What are the issues about a diesel engine versus a gas engine? I'm just curious.
So diesels are much more powerful than a gas engine when you're talking about the construction work that we do. The 350s, we're looking at a 350 this time, so the diesel engine is not as important to us, because of this would be used for lighter duty rather than heavier duty as the 550s that we've been getting over the course of the years. So it's actually, we've replaced a lot of the diesel engines, a lot of the 550s in the recent past. So we're pretty good on that. So that's why this is a 350, which is still important, one of our frontline vehicles, but it doesn't require as much power as the 550 diesels would. So that's the main feature of the diesel engine for these types of trucks. With emissions, looking at lowering emissions, the state and federal governments are looking to follow California's lead, where they're trying to get rid of all trucks with diesel engines starting January 1st of 2025. So that's going to be really changing the market a lot. It's going to be affecting a lot of DPWs, and we've had a lot of conversations with a lot of DPWs in the recent past where everybody's kind of panicking because they weren't as progressive as we were. And I thank you guys as the Capital Committee to recognize that over the last 5 years that we were able to replace a lot of our vehicles.
Is this one going to be a dump truck?
It's a small 6-wheel dump truck, not the large ones you see with the large sanders on them. These are for instance, if we're doing a job on the roadway and we need a few yards of stone, the 550s are usually ones that can carry that load. The 350s we would do, loam, or we would do mulch, or we would do a lot of the different materials that are a little bit lighter that don't put a lot of strain on these types of trucks. So we've got a lot of different vehicles that we use for heavier duty jobs and lighter jobs.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mo?
Don't make it too easy on me, will you?
All right. All right, what's next, Mo?
As far as we're not talking water and sewer today, correct?
That's correct.
So the last one is the pavement management. We looked at that extra money from the pavement management, really has been helping our roadways. We improved from the mid 70s to the high 70s, and even we went into the 80s as far as our roadway surface rating, which is a tremendous accomplishment for the town to be able to say that we're, one of the higher roadway surface ratings in the Commonwealth right now. The 185, I know we get money from the Fair Share program now. I'm not exactly sure how that money would be spent. If that Fair Share money is put towards Chapter 90, the capital, we would not ask for the capital, but if it's not being put towards roadways, then I would still like to ask for the pavement management money to be put in there.
Have we allocated that similar amount in previous years?
Correct. The 185.
And now it's 412?
No. The 412 is our annual Chapter 90. The 185 is a supplement to that 412.
The fair
at the
share,
very bottom. Mhm.
yeah, the fair share supplement that is coming to the town is the money coming from the millionaire's tax.
Okay.
And we have spent our own 185?
I'm sorry?
No, we were notified of the fair share this summer. We have not spent it yet. It has to be spent for items that are eligible for Chapter 90, excuse me.
So if we didn't have that fair share money, would this project be in the request?
If we did not have the fair share money, this would still be in the request.
But we have a potential funding source for it. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm sorry?
But we have a potential funding source?
Correct.
So when will we know that for sure? Like when will we be?
It's available now. Oops, sorry.
Okay. Does that mean we won't have to hit the capital stabilization fund with this at all?
I would not ask for it if the money from the fair share is used for the roadway work.
Gotcha. And does the fair share get allocated by the select board or by town meeting?
It can be allocated by the select board. It's considered just it's an additional, a Chapter 90 allocation.
Okay.
They released it too late, so they could not include it in Chapter 90, so it came as a separate wire transfer to the town.
Gotcha.
Would there be any thought about, or what is your thought about sidewalks? Be a good source for sidewalk money.
Well,
So that is, Mo and I have been talking about that is a good way to utilize that money, especially as we've been talking about how do we do more sidewalks in town? How do we utilize that funding?
But this year, you'd rather spend it on the roads?
well, the 185 was a supplement to the roadway because I believe I showed a guideline of a graph that showed if we only spent Chapter 90, we would decline in our roadway efforts. If we use that additional monies, it shows a slight incline, and we've been doing that over the course of the years. if we spent that money and did not get the $185,000 supplemental and use the fair share money, we would still be putting it into our roadways to keep our levels higher rather than decline in our roadways. But if we use it for sidewalks, we would decline in our roadways and our sidewalks would be increasing. So basically, if we were to do a program with getting more sidewalks completed, rehab, new sidewalks, ADA compliance, all the rest, I would ask for additional monies to do that.
Do we think?
Oh, go ahead, please, Mike.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Megan.
I was just gonna say, I don't see sidewalks on this plan at all, though, right? Is that still a big question?
So we're trying to figure out what's the best route to do. I did put it on my list for last year. We discussed about putting a sidewalk program together. We did a sidewalk evaluation study. We did showed our ADA compliance, how much we're behind in that, how much we are needing to do connections and gaps, filling in the gaps around town. We've looked into complete streets, trying to get funding for that through that program, and that's for sidewalks for the most part. But the pressure for us to do to add more sidewalks, to rehab the existing ones that we have, we would need to develop a program to do that and to ask capital to move forward with that. So we haven't had that. We haven't not done that yet.
I think it needs a bigger discussion with the capital budget committee and the select board to find out what is our forward-looking plan for sidewalk. We're not going to be able to address the sidewalk efficiencies and programs, and I get requests repeatedly for sidewalks. We're not going to be able to do that with the money we have in the capital budget or the fair share money. We don't even know. It's a variable amount we will receive in addition to Chapter 90 each year, but it's variable. We can't count on that, what that amount is going to be. So I have a meeting with the chair today, and my strong suggestion is that we schedule a meeting for both groups to have a long-term discussion about sidewalks, especially as we enter into this town meeting.
Last year's capital, I did put in $150,000 per year for sidewalks. That was we were discussing that we would need to kind of show a plan to move forward with something like that. 150,000 was just a placeholder. It wasn't something that we had for a project. It was just something to get the conversation started. So that's where we are now.
Okay. Anything else, Mo?
Nothing else on highway or any of the highway related departments.
Megan, do you have something?
I was just wondering whether it's appropriate at this point to just ask Maurice to kind of give us an overview looking forward,
Sure.
especially like with the big transfer station thing in the future, or if you want to just save like the future years.
So we've had a lot of different conversations regarding transfer station reconfiguration. With all the different wants and needs, it's difficult to spend, and 500,000 is probably not a true figure anymore to reconfigure the transfer station. It's been pushed off now to 2029. That's something to look into, especially with the swap and different things, to try to figure out what's the best way to reconfigure that transfer station, get a design done, get a new system where everything should be in its proper place and the traffic flow, looking at all those different systems down there. It's going to be more than 500,000 now, I believe. It's going to climb, but we keep pushing that off. It's important, but it's not as a priority as these other things are. That's why we have been pushing it off more and more, but it's still something to keep in the back of our minds to see. The transfer station is running well. I think it could be more efficient. I think but it's, again, we have a lot of other needs and wants that kind of overrule that. Some of the other things we're looking at, we start to look at the transfer station solid waste trailer that's on the schedule for FY 2030. We have a couple of trailers, so that's in the future. We're looking for a couple other vehicles. We have to start looking at our snow and ice with our large trucks and sanders. Eventually, those are going to need to be replaced. We have a couple looking in the next 5 years. Put them on there. Depending on what happens with a grounds division or not, is to look into mowers that we take care of certain properties, but that may not have to be taken under consideration unless there's a grounds division that's created, or a new sweeper is on the docket for in the next 3 years. That goes out so many times a year that the wear and tear on that is really going to be an important investment in as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else for Mo? All right. I think that's it.
All right. Well, I thank you for your time, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Mo.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
So now we're going to go to Owen on IT.
Yes, I'm promoting Owen now.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Owen. Welcome.
How's everyone doing today?
Fantastic.
Good, good, good.
So where would you like to start?
All right, so probably best to start with the town hall initially. So we are looking for capital funding to replace the phone system throughout the town, but the phone system in the town hall was last done in 2010. Our most recent system upgrade was done to the public safety building in 2016. We are now looking at upgrading all back-end hardware to the phone system. So we become compliant with the PROMS Act, I believe it's called, which allows public safety to see exactly where 911 calls are coming from, down to the cubicle or the room number within a building. The phone system that we have cannot do that. So if someone dials 911 from the town hall or DPW, it'll just show up the address where the call is coming from and not specifically the location within the building. So in conjunction with this project, we are also going to look at ways through which we can reduce our operational expenditure for running the phone system year on year. We've just completed this project on the school side, and we have seen some cost savings, not enormous, but they're there. So the 40,000 foot view of this project to replace the phone system, back end at town hall, police, DPW, outreach, park and rec, as well as the town hall.
All right. Questions for Owen on the phones?
Is this the request that is blocked in there is the $50,000?
Correct. Yeah.
So this year, instead of computers and upgrades, you're just planning to spend it all on the phone system.
Yes. Yeah. So for the past number of years, we've managed to upgrade all the hardware, desktops, things of that nature on the town side. Everything is Windows 11 compliant. We're at Windows 11 now because Windows 10 is end of life next year. So we're in a good position in that regard. I know we have some future capital requests going before you guys for the servers. That's just typical end of life stuff. Well, I think if we can get away with another 14 years on the phone system after we replace this, that'll get me to retirement and save you guys a lot of money. So.
I will mention too on the thanks, Owen. Sorry. For the on the town side for the capital figures for the 5-year plan, in years past we have held 30,000 for the 5-year outlook. This year I have we have 50,000 for the 5 years, just noting the projects that Owen has coming up, and just how costs have increased. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that had been increased on the 5-year outlook from 30 to 50,000.
Thank you, Frank.
And I think Owen, even the project that we had potentially discussed for next year is also in the neighborhood of 40 to 60 or something like that.
Yeah, it's around the 50,000 mark. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on the phones? All right, I think the only other issue you have is the school, correct? The school IT as well?
Yep. So on the school IT, again, we're looking for the same amount as we have done in prior years. What we've noticed specifically, what one of the big drivers in expense for us right now is the security end on the school side, replacing cameras, upgrading servers, licensing, things of that nature. We're still every year replacing probably 20 to 30 projectors in classrooms, access points. So it's just like the set cost of running the school system. And I also suppose with the increased focus on security and what we've had to put in place in terms of door swipes, card access, things of that nature, integrated with cameras, PA system, it's just an ongoing, I guess, hidden cost that you would say. It's just present now with the running of the schools. We just seem to be doing so much relative to cameras, licensing, things of that nature. It's taking up quite a time. Also, then that we're looking at just the regular day-to-day technology that the teachers use. None of this has been spent for student work. This is all instructional, either hardware or security software that's being implemented throughout. I know it's a pretty broad stroke of things, so I'm sure you have questions.
Well, I think it would be helpful if we could get sort of a retrospective on, because I know you don't always know exactly going into a year, particularly when you're in a budget process here in September of 2024, and you're not going to start spending this money until July of 2025. So you're not going to be able to predict exactly when a particular access point's going to fail or what have you. But it would be helpful, I think, if we could see retrospectively what you ended up spending the money on, let's say over the last 3 years. So this is what we did within this allocation, just to get a sense of what's been happening. Would that be possible? I don't want to create a huge amount of work for you. If we could just get a breakdown of what's been spent on, that would be helpful to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, for example, like last summer, we upgraded all the teacher MacBooks. That was probably in the region of 330,000. So we had to kind of amalgamate 2 years worth of capital funding to make that happen. But we should not be looking at that replacement cycle for, I would say, 5 years, 4 to 5 years again. That's just one example of how the money has been spent. But I can absolutely go back over the last 3 years. I'll probably have to reach out to Andrew to get a breakdown of how the funds allocated to that capital account were appropriated exactly, and then bring a summary before you guys again so you can see how it was spent.
That would be great. I'd appreciate that. Other questions? All right, anything else? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Rob and Brent, I think you had wanted more detail on what was in the 300. Are you comfortable with what Owen has said, or?
I can pull up, no problem.
Well, we'll need to see it. So the chair's asked for it, and I'll hold my peace until I've seen it. So
The past. Okay.
I mean, yeah, it would be very helpful to see how it's been spent in the past to get a sense of breakdown, hardware versus software, classroom versus access points, things like that. People ask questions. It's a big number, and so people ask questions, and I don't have answers. So I'd like to get some answers.
I would agree.
So would it make most sense if I provide this information to Frank and then he can disseminate it out to you guys? And then if you need to speak with me again, we can rearrange another meeting. Is that the best way to go at this?
That's perfect.
Yep. Okay.
Yep, that's perfect.
I would agree.
All right, anything else, Rowan?
I guess just
going-
looking forward, does the 300 looks reasonable going forward? He said. I think you spoke to that earlier, so I'll take that as a yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. But again, to further this conversation, I'll certainly provide historical expenditure from these accounts, and it'll just help, start this conversation in more detail if that's what's required for sure.
Yeah, and I think it would be helpful as well to the extent that there are other IT expenses or other things you've spent, other IT expenses that did not come out of this account, but came out of other budgets, just to get a sense, is it actually more than 300, but you're able to find some amount above 300 from other sources? That would be helpful to know too. In other words, if you think there are other expenditures that you've made that would be within the eligibility requirements of a capital expenditure, but you've taken it from someplace else, I think I'd like to see that too. Just
Sure.
to understand what else is in the mix here, or if it came from grants or it came from other sources. So well, let's not limit it just to that 300. Let's look at the whole, to the extent there are capital, IT capital investments that were not funded by this account. Let's see those too.
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
Just a point of information, I'm just curious, it's been a long time since my kids were in the middle school. Are you providing any iPad kind of or computers to students these days?
Yeah, so when a student comes into sixth grade, they're provided with the Chromebook. So per grade, just in rough broad strokes, it's about $75,000–$80,000 a year per grade. When a sixth grade student comes in, or a new sixth grade comes in, it costs us like $75,000–$80,000 to issue a student with a device, which will last about 4 years, 4 to 5 years. Once they get up into grade 10 at the high school, they start doing more of the one-to-one type instruction. Not so much instruction, but the model is more of a one-to-one, where the staff brings in or the students bring in their own devices, or it's not mandatory that they use a Chromebook. But in grades 6 and grades 9, it's mandatory Chromebook, one-to-one, and we don't permit BYOD. And then as they get into grades 10 and 11, you see more and more students bringing in their own devices, MacBooks, MacBooks, something that might be a little bit more powerful to help with APs and things of that nature. Excuse me. But all the students so throughout the district, it's a one-to-one initiative. I believe at kindergarten, pre-K and kindergarten, there are iPads for the students. And then starting in grade 1, we start with the Chromebooks. And then as you get up to, I'm just trying to think now, grades 2, 3, 4, and 5, there are Chromebooks in each classroom for the students, but they are not allowed to take them home. And then starting in 6th grade, they are allowed to take them home. There's another cost involved in that, where we have to monitor their activity while they're on home networks using school devices and things of that nature. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions, Ro?
This is Rob. I had a question, and it has to do with economies of scale. And I wanted to know if the town can benefit from purchasing, not a cooperative, but like a purchasing program done, say either through the county or maybe through the state Department of Education for hardware, things like that.
So typically they don't offer us deals in hardware through those avenues, but they do for software. So already right now, I actually purchase a lot of the town department software through the schools because there's more aggressive pricing for K through 12. But to buy the hardware, we buy it off the state contract bid list, so they have to adhere to the pricing structure that's outlined on that. But we don't typically do bulk purchasing of devices in collaboration with other districts or other entities.
Yep.
Partly because I think the timing schedules are different and the end of life periods are different.
Mhm.
That's probably part, but I know like our antivirus as an example, we buy that for the town and schools through a collaborative.
Okay.
So,
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
you're welcome.
Anything else? All right, hearing nothing, Owen, you're good to go. Thank you. We'll look forward to that
Guys, thank you
information.
so much for your
and
time
if we,
today.
if we need to have you back, we'll schedule you back.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Frank, anything else we should cover today?
I actually have one thing. I know I've had a conversation with Mike as chair of the committee, and I've had a conversation with the chair of the select board, but I think it's time to revisit the charter for the capital budget committee. I think that we need to have myself, Michael LaFrancesca, and Andrew Foster be ex officio non-voting members of this committee. We're presenting projects to you and then voting on them. And I don't think that feels right to me. So I'm also voting on projects for other departments and departments that work underneath me. So I'm going to be making a suggestion to the select board that we revisit the capital budget charter and redefine that. Just wanted to put that, I didn't want you to be blindsided when I bring that up at a select board meeting in the future.
Is the current charter on the website?
It is, and we currently should have a select board member sitting on this committee as well. And after Mike stepped down from the select board, we haven't replaced that select board member position on that as well. So I'm going to have them take a look at the whole contract, the whole charter, sorry.
I think that's great. Actually, one of my questions I was thinking about this morning on my way in was just like, are we supposed, like, how are we supposed to define our role? Like, oh, we think that's too much, or, you know, we're pretty much I don't want to say a rubber stamp, but we're pretty much, you know, we are, you know, we haven't had to make any tough decisions because of the funding situation that we've been in. So it would be good to just kind of revisit what it is, how the lens we're supposed to bring to the process.
So I think we're going through a process with the warrant committee now where they're revising and updating the financial policies. We haven't made any revisions since 2022, I believe. That's coming in front of the select board. So I think that's the perfect time as we're looking at those policies to also look at the charter for the capital budget committee. And I think it'll be important to have the capital budget committee be present at a select board meeting when we put forth the capital budget. So that they can have some of those questions and discussions with you. And maybe that's at that point we can kick off this discussion long-term of how we're going to handle sidewalks for everyone in town.
Okay.
I can't be at the next two meetings, so I hope someone else will ask a lot of questions. But I will watch the recordings.
It would be helpful, Megan, we'll get you everything in advance as well, so that if you want to send questions in advance, we can take those as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had just one other thing to mention, short and sweet, I promise. The one thing I forgot to mention when we started the meeting, when we were reviewing the 5-year plan, was I sent along basically a summary of the funding amounts sorted by the funding sources for the 5-year outlook of the capital plan. So it lists out all the different funding sources: capital stabilization fund, general fund debt, ALS revolving fund, and so on. and lists all of the capital requests, I guess, as requested as of now, nothing approved by the committee, what the totals would be from those funding sources for the next 5 years. The one that does look a little awkward is the one, two, three, fourth one from the bottom, Parks and Recreation Revolving Fund / Capital Stabilization Fund. So right now, the Parks and Recreation Commission's request, it has both funding sources listed for the Metacomet tennis court resurfacing.
Would it be helpful to just pop that up and share it? So.
Oh, yeah, of course, I can do that right now. My screen. Okay, so this is the chart I was referring to. Basically shows all the funding sources here, and right now the requested capital funding from each of the individual funding sources. This is the one I was just referring to that looks a little awkward, but I didn't feel it appropriate for me to decide which funding source it would come from, whether the Parks and Rec Fund or the Capital Stabilization Fund. As of right now, the Parks and Rec Commission has requested it come from both. So I just left that one as is. So that's why that one looks a little bit awkward.
And that's the tennis court project, right?
Correct, at Metacomet. You can see on the top, it hovers right around the $1 million mark, which is a target I think that was discussed previously by this committee. The outlier being fiscal 29. I believe that is the main driver there is the $500,000 request that Mo just mentioned for the transfer station reconfiguration. So I think that's why that 29 number is a little bit higher than the rest. But I know this came up at the last meeting, so hoping that this answers any questions that came up then, and happy to tweak it if not.
I think what would be interesting next to this is, well, the actual dollars that might be available, but I guess we won't know that till we kind of play through each year, right?
Yeah, I mean, for this upcoming year and, probably the year after, we could probably give a solid guess, but beyond that, I guess it gets a little bit trickier just because we won't know how much free cash will be available to, assuming that is the only funding source for the Capital Stabilization Fund. We won't know how much free cash will be available to replenish the fund, outside of the next couple of years.
Mm.
And just a thought on the transfer station project, does that belong in here, or does it belong with the permanent building committee, a permanent building kind of process?
Truth be told, I'm not sure the extent of the reconfiguration. I haven't discussed it at length with Mo, but I can have a follow-up conversation with him to get a better idea of what that project actually entails. We've talked about it briefly, but I can get a better idea of where his head is at on that, and then maybe we can talk about what capital process it truly belongs in.
All right, anything else? All right, hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Christine,
Aye.
Megan,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Megan, and I vote
Yes.
yes as well. All right, thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
So on.